Hello everybody and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my new episode of New Album Spotlight, a little bit of a bonus episode here. I did a review on Tuesday of the new Moon Safari, so please check that one out. But now I have a totally different kind of album that I wanted to dive into. This is Earthside's Let the Truth Speak. This is a fantastic work that came out just a couple weeks ago. And I wanted to dive into it a little bit because I think it's worth mentioning and talking about. Not really in my typical lane of progressive music, I would say, but I really have come to appreciate and enjoy the record, and I think it's something really special that's worth discussing. So Earthside is a band that was founded in New Haven in the US in 2015. They came out with an album called A Dream in Static previously. A really cool album that focuses on this cinematic style that they're known for. They introduce a lot of different vocalists. They're basically an instrumental prog metal band. They don't have a devoted singer, but on their albums they invite all of these different singers to come on board and be part of these different tracks on the album. So it's a really cool thing that you get to hear these different voices and these different interpretations from these other notable vocalists. And it provides for an interesting framework for the album. So I really appreciate that side to their sound. The other thing that sets them apart and makes them unique is this more cinematic style to what they do. They add in a lot of orchestration, a lot of big sounds, a lot of epic moments. Sometimes it almost feels even like a film score. They do these big epic crescendos in these moments, especially in the finale of this album. It just feels like you're watching some epic, huge movie that's just playing out in front of your eyes, this big epic fantasy or sci-fi that's grand in scope and just has this big feel to it, and I think they really capture that in their musical palette. It's just a really fascinating sound, and for me what makes this project work is this expansive nature of the music, that they're willing to experiment. They're willing to go into different directions and do things that aren't conventional in the prog metal space, and I think that makes for a really captivating listen. Steven Wilson talked earlier this year about how the Harmony Codex is cinema for the ears, and I think that label just as well applies to Earthside and to this album. I think this is truly cinema for the ears. If you want to expand your mind a little bit, expand your tastes, and hear something that is a little bit grander in scope, that adds in this cinematic orchestration on top of their traditional prog metal framework, this is a great album to check out, and it's really fun, some of the genre-bending type things they do, especially on The Lesser Evil, which to me is the total highlight of the record, right smack in the middle, where they experiment with an almost R&B type flavor. You get this vocalist that they invite on, Larry Braggs, who's from Tower of Power, and you get these horns and these jazzier moments and these great funky bits, and it blends really well, this like progressive metal style from the band, but then you get these jazzy inflections, these R&B vocalizations, these funky bits with these horn stabs. It just works really extremely well in a surprising fashion and makes it just feel different and fresh. Really love the passionate vocals here, the dreamy sections with orchestrated washes and jazz-inflected vocals. And when those horns enter amongst those metal riffs, this fusion of prog metal and funk and jazz is just so captivating and interesting to me. This singular track is the one that really gripped me and made me decide that I had to review the album as a whole. But beyond that track, there's so many cool things to listen to throughout the album. It starts off with a really interesting instrumental with a lot of tinkling percussion, marimbas and things from, I believe Sandbox is the percussion group apparently. And it's a really cool stage setter, instrumental cinematic piece that has these cool tinkling sounds and showcases the progressive metal sounds that you'd come to expect from the record. We Who Lament has some rolling drums and guitar, bringing in increased intensity before Katora comes in with some passionate vocals. There's that cinematic atmosphere with soundscapes and light vocalizations, some soaring epic moments, some pounding drums, heavy guitars, really gives way to this grand majestic majestic scope that continues forward with tyranny, with some heavy chugging riffs that swirl around the listener with added dimensions of strings, giving that cinematic edge once again. This piece continues to build in emotional power as the vocals get more raw and we get more powerful guitars in the backing. There's some fluidity in the guitar lines with some interesting drum patterns and repeating bass arpeggios. There is such a laid-back, ethereal vibe to contrast with some of the heavier sections, and it ends with epic fashion with the orchestration giving heft and some near growling impassioned vocals giving weight to the piece as well. They really go full out throughout the whole record. They don't ever hold back. It's always grand and epic. They're always going hard with these heavier sounds, accentuated with these strings and swirling cinematic soundscapes. It's just really beautiful how they do this. I like watching the Earth Sink, which is a lengthy instrumental halfway through the album. You start with some lone jazzy guitar in a minor key, very methodical as it slowly builds with adding some light percussion and twinkling keys to the mix. You add some heavier drum work and crushing metal guitars to give this intense wall of sound, and the music just takes you on a journey. That's what the album's all about to me, is taking you on an emotional journey. It just grips you from the very start and leads you down a path through all these different emotions and feelings, sometimes crushing weight of heaviness, sometimes lighter, more atmospheric touches to give you a breath as you go along in this pathway. A really beautiful piece. The final two tracks really are where things lift off to the next level. We get Let the Truth Speak, the title track, which features vocalist Daniel Tompkins, who was incredible on Tesseract's album this year. He's an incredible vocalist who showcases all of his strengths as he's able to ably match all of the tricky musical patterns that come throughout this track. It's almost a hard track to describe because it's ever changing and switching up and doing different things. We have an otherworldly feel to some of the keys and orchestration, but some groovy bass work and heavy riffs, while Daniel wails on top in his top form and his vocal abilities. He's able to have these really beautiful, expressive vocals, but also get more into that aggressive, heavier type feel. So it's just a really great track that gives a lot of focus to a lot of different facets of their sound, but never losing track of that heavier cinematic style. There's a great instrumental moment which focuses on melodic guitar soloing as the drums and orchestration back it up, gives a bit lighter respite from the onslaught before it increases back in intensity with some pounding riffs. It's just a really great piece of work that once again takes you on a journey, has a lot of shifting sections and different things going on in the mix that always captivate and keep your interest throughout the track. And then we end with this near 10-minute instrumental piece, All We Knew and Ever Loved, which features Bard Kolstad from Leprous on drums. And it's a big, epic, expansive piece. There's big atmospherics and sounds of an organ. We hear a lighter guitar riff before the orchestration organ come crashing in with cinematic power. It's true soundscape magic. It's like I said, like a film score. Every sound is vital to painting this post-apocalyptic type picture that they're going for. It builds with interesting percussion and repeated sounds that adapt and change as the journey continues. The build-up in intensity is immense, adding just a huge wall of sound that descends upon the listener with almost crushing weight. And that organ sound is so important to adding this crushing element to the sound, just this big, epic organ that just really exudes so much power and presence. It's an incredible finale to the album that showcases all of their prowess as instrumentalists and as writers, and bringing in this cinematic feel to add an epicness that not many other bands can deliver. So all in all, it's just a huge album, and it's hard to talk about really in a lot of ways because you really have to experience it to understand how this makes you feel and how it shifts and changes as you listen throughout the record. And I just think it's expertly produced. It sounds really great in my ears. It showcases a lot of talent from the band, and to me this is a band that works best in the studio because that's how they're able to build these soundscapes and really craft something that is truly cinema for the ears, that makes you evoke different mental pictures of what they're conveying musically. And I love that kind of thing. I think it's really the power of music that they can just paint such a vivid picture with just a musical palette. I'm always impressed by that ability by certain musicians to build that and to bring that across through these great sounds and epic styles. So very much appreciate this album. I'm impressed by it. I think it's really fantastic, and I hope they continue in this vein and can create some new epic works that match the power and majesty that they display here in this album. So thank you guys for joining me in this episode. If you're curious about what this may sound like, I would advise you to check it out, at least give it a chance, see if this style's for you. Like I said, I'm very impressed by it, even though it's outside of my typical wheelhouse, so it's probably not one I'm going to listen to on repeat a ton, but it's one that I am going to listen to every so often and be utterly impressed and acknowledge that it's one of the best expressions of music that I've heard this year. So thank you guys for joining me. Please let me know in the comments how you feel about this record, if it touched you, if you liked it as well. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, and I'm grateful for you guys joining me on this episode, and hopefully you'll continue and stick with me in future episodes. So thank you guys so much, and please enjoy the music. Bye, everybody.